Hey, what's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is Good Morning Liberty. My name is Nate Thurston. We are at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm sitting down with the Libertarian Party's presidential candidate, Chase Oliver. How you doing?
You are indeed sitting down with me, and
Yes.
I'm doing great. Having a great time here in Las Vegas at the Fest of Freedom. It's a great time to talk about freedom.
Yes. So congrats, by the way, on the nomination. I know you put in a ton of work to get here. I heard you had like the best ground game, did a ton of work throughout the whole process, and it paid off for you. And so I just want to tell you congrats on that to start off.
Thank you so much. Congrats to my team too, because it wasn't just me. It was the ground game. It was the getting out to all 50 states and the volunteers. So it certainly was not a just me effort, but I'm thankful you saw the hard work that the campaign put into it, because that's really what paid off.
You've got a debate coming up here in a bit, right?
In a couple hours I got a debate here at Freedom Fest. It'll be a lot of fun with the Free and Equal Foundation.
Are all of the presidential candidates that are at Freedom Fest going to be there, or?
Well, they're all invited. That's the thing, is they're all invited to come on the stage. It's going to be on the debate stage, myself, Jill Stein of the Green Party, Randall Terry of the Constitution Party. RFK Jr. is giving a speech before the debate, so I guess he's not comfortable having his ideas like on a stage where other people can, challenge them or have discourse about it. And then Cornel West, he was awesome. He's around here somewhere.
Yeah, I heard he was here, yeah.
But he's not going to be on the debate stage today. So I think it's a shame, though, because I think if you're running for president, you should be trying to get your name out there to as many people as possible. Get on any debate stage that'll have you, especially one that's going to be in front of a bunch of activists and people who are really involved in the political movement. I think it's a shame.
Obviously, he's been trying to go after the libertarian vote.
Yeah, I'm thinking he might be scared to have a libertarian challenging him from the libertarian perspective, right?
Yeah.
Coming up from the libertarian flank, because it might expose that some of the things he is libertarian-ish on that's exactly what it is. He's libertarian-ish. And so I think maybe he is scared to have a libertarian challenging the debate stage because he wants our vote so bad, but doesn't want to have a libertarian. Because he could have debated also. I mean, I'm sure we would have invited him to the debate stage at the Libertarian National Convention if him or Donald Trump had wanted to participate.
Yeah, I think that's probably the reason why. Now, I know that there are some libertarians who are thinking about supporting him, even a specific state, which I guess I don't have to mention. I talked to Mike Tremont earlier this morning, and I asked him the same question. Like, the idea of a Libertarian Party not putting the Libertarian Party's candidate on the ballot, what do you think about that?
I don't think it's great for party growth. I think it actually harms our party image in a way that is worse than what any candidate could have done, because you're now showing this fracture, and it's really hard to already get people to jump outside of the two-party system because they say, oh, you can't win, or this, that, or the other. And when you're dividing ourselves up, it makes it that much harder to get those people to come out of the two-party system. And I think that's what we need to do most of all as libertarians or independents or people outside of the Democrats and Republicans, is draw as many people out as we can. And so I would like to see a unified Libertarian Party, and I'm doing the best that I can to try to extend my hand and try to unify ourselves.
Now, maybe I was going to try to talk to some people from LPCO, and of course RFK is not going to be on the debate stage. If he were, is there anything in his platform that you'd like to differentiate? That's not libertarian. This would be the libertarian answer. I don't know, maybe mortgage rates, or maybe some of his other economic policies.
Oh yeah, I mean, we could talk a lot of different policies, mostly, but yeah, the mortgage stuff that basically has the government using taxpayer money to back mortgages. I mean, I think we already played this game in 2008 and 2009, and we saw what happened, and it really affected my generation the most because millennials were just getting started in the economy when that happened. And so I think, really that's a bad plan to try to sell to my generation, because we've already seen what happened. When you look at his gun policy, he claims he doesn't want to mess with gun rights, but still on his website today, it says if Congress presents him an assault weapons ban, he will sign it and let the courts decide. I don't think that's really the realm for him to be doing this. Shall not be infringed is pretty clear, and that's where you should be coming from a libertarian perspective. But when you just look at so much of what he wants to do, for instance, he doesn't want to get us out of NATO. He just wants to change the way we interact with NATO and reform our interrelationship with NATO. So much of it is, I don't want to get rid of the government. I just want to make it work better. I want to reform it better. But the truth is so much government is just terrible. It doesn't work, and it's the most inefficient way to allocate resources. So no matter how well you reform it, it will never perform as well as a free market, free minds, and free people.
Now, on the other side of the ballot, you've got a convicted felon, former president, and you've also got a possible dementia patient. I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you for sure. How laughable has the last month or so been for you?
Well, since the Trump-Biden debate, I have seen so many more people who are just ready to talk to me as a younger candidate, who are like, man, we just cannot. In Houston, I was at the Pride Parade, And so many young people were like, I just can't with Joe Biden, man. Like, I saw that debate, I thought it was one thing, it was not another, and that's just too much. And when we start talking to these voters, we realize they're actually a lot more libertarian than Democrat even. Like, they're independents, but they just feel squishy about voting for either Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Well, I think that's a great opportunity for us to get voters out there, because those two buffoons, like, one was just incapable of debating, and the other one was just full of hyperbole and lies and not really talking the truth about, statistics. And neither of them, of course, brought up the debts or deficits, because both of them are terrible on that.
No, didn't hear a single thing about that at all. You said you were out talking to people, and turns out maybe they were more libertarian, than Republican or Democrat. Do you find that a lot when you're out talking to people?
Oh yeah, so one of the greatest tools that we've had in the Libertarian Party, I think in the last 20 years, is the world's smallest political quiz, because it's an easy way for us to get people to think about where their politics are and realizing that they're much more in the libertarian quadrant than they thought. I think broadly speaking, most people have a libertarian streak through them. It's just a matter of communicating that maybe their one libertarian issue needs to be connected to the greater philosophy. That's certainly how I got in the door. I was an anti-war guy. Like, I hated the Bush wars, the war on terror. And what got me in the door is somebody saying, okay, that's opposing the aggression of the state. Now let's talk about opposing the aggression of the state domestically.
Yeah.
And it made things start to click for me. So I want to bring people into the tent on their issue and then help them grow into the philosophy. You get more libertarian the more you're in the Libertarian Party. Unfortunately, libertarians trying to join the Republican or Democratic Party, they never make those parties more libertarian. They always just become more Republican or more Democrat. And I think it's a better path to do.
It's interesting. The great thing about the Libertarian Party is, so you were super anti-war, against those wars. I was super pro-war at that time. Here we are in the same party right now, with the same views on war after all this time has gone by. And I know war is one of your really big things. We're involved in two really big ones, right now, going on in Gaza and going on in Ukraine, of course. Give everyone your spiel on that, because I know like me, you're not in agreement.
Oh yeah, well ultimately, I feel that our foreign policy has to change. For my entire adult life, we've been exporting our values via the militaristic bomb, bullet, and drone. Basically enforcing our way of life on people with the threat of, if you're not with us, you're against us, and we'll drone bomb you back into the Stone Age. Mm-hmm. And that is no way for our foreign policy to be running. That's not diplomacy, that is not actually engaging with your international neighbors. And so we need to pull ourselves back militarily and start engaging in diplomacy, free trade, and voluntary exchange with our neighbors. And this is not just true in Gaza or in Ukraine, but everywhere. We need to remove our military footprint. But with Gaza in particular, we have been militarily backing the government of Israel, which has now been using this to perpetrate this war, which I believe anybody, if October 7th happened in our neighborhoods, we would say, okay, we need some sort of response to this. But the response that Israel has had has been so heavy-handed, has led to so many civilian deaths, that they have lost the goodwill of the rest of the world that would be backing them otherwise. They have created such a destabilization in Gaza that it's going to further inflame tensions with that population, with the Arab neighbors, and ultimately that makes it less safe to be the average Israeli. And so if you're an Israeli who wants to see peace in your country, you should be opposing the Netanyahu war machine. Similarly, with Ukraine, I recognize that Ukraine has the right to defend itself, and ultimately, I don't want to see my taxpayer money going to that. But if you want to go fight in Ukraine, go fight in Ukraine. I'm not going to tell you not to, but I don't want to see our tax money going to fight that. And in fact, I think we need to have the true humanitarian response, which is opposing conscription. Because in Russia, most of those people who are fighting now in Ukraine are conscripted soldiers. We should be having the policy of, if you're being conscripted, whether it's on one side or the other, forced to fight against your will and you don't want to, you should be able to come to the United States on an asylum claim, because conscription is evil. It is slavery and forcing you to fight and forcing you to kill other people. And if that's not a human rights abuse that deserves amnesty and to allow people to get out of that, nothing is. And so that's a better way to demoralize the Russian military, to bring some of these, to push them back across the border and not have to fire a single shot.
Before we get out of here, we got a lot of libertarians that listen to the show. We have a live group. We're always chatting back and forth with everyone. There's been one issue, social issue, that a lot of people have brought up, okay? And I agree with you on 99.9% of every single thing. And so I wanted to give you a chance to get your stance out there on the gender affirming care issue. That's been one of the major things I keep hearing over and over again. So what's your stance officially on that?
So ultimately, first and foremost, I want to just get this out there. I am not trying to trans the children. I don't want to make kids trans. I don't want to force them to be trans. But I recognize that gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia exist amongst young people. Mm-hmm. And I recognize that this is a very small number of young people. And ultimately, first off, surgery should be a no-go for anybody under 18. It is major body modification. There's extra health consequences. You have to go under, anesthesia. You have days, weeks, or months of recovery. Like, that's a whole different ball of wax. But when it comes to these other therapies, namely HRT or puberty blockers. I believe that should be in the realm of a parent making that decision with the doctor and with that patient, and not putting the government involved. Because when you give government an inch, they take a mile. And so if you allow them to start saying, oh, well, based on our decision, we don't think this is great for you at the state level, so we're going to ban this medical care. Well, that's the same thing that can enforce vaccine mandates, they can enforce all kinds of healthcare tyranny. Ultimately, I want those decisions to be made by a parent, a doctor, and a child. Now, some people have a difference of opinion on that subject. They think it's not right, you should never do that, whatever. Okay, well, that is your family, raise them accordingly. But the science is not settled. There's multiple studies. Some say it's bad, some say it's good. When that science is not settled, we have to leave that in the realm of individual choice, and when you're not old enough to make that individual choice, you have to rely on your parent to be your guardian.
Well, so, when you say the science isn't settled, that makes me think that you would err on the side of caution then when it's not settled, because I've tried to read into all of this stuff and just figure out. What I wanted to know was, is it reversible? What if someone's in a phase? I know that this is a real thing. I don't deny that transgender people exist or anything like that. I worry about a kid that's going through a phase or has a clique, a friend group, something like that. There's websites that instruct children on what to say to their doctor. And so I worry about, with the science not being settled, what happens if this isn't reversible,
Well, ultimately you have to, so in the terms, I think the biggest concern for people with that is puberty blockers. And I want to remind people that puberty blockers did not just come out of thin air to help trans kids. Puberty blockers were created to treat precocious puberty, when young girls were going through puberty like age 8, and they needed to halt that for a while. And that's why they use these drugs, and it is shown to be mostly reversible. Now, are there instances where there are healthcare side effects? Absolutely, that's every drug. But this drug was developed for a reason. It's been used in that application safely by doctors. I think, and that's where I'm ultimately lying. But when we talk about the science isn't settled, healthcare freedom implies the right to try experimental medications, experimental therapies. We have the right to try legislation that was championed by President Trump that I think we should actually expand out further. Because one of the greatest examples of this is during the 80s and 90s, during the HIV/AIDS crisis. The Department of Health, led by Anthony Fauci, was not allowing people to try alternative medications and therapies, and it was killing people. And so I think ultimately we have to err on the side of freedom, making choices, and if there are instances where that's not the best choice to be made, great, that's your choice to make, and pick it for your family as you want. And the biggest thing I would like to remind people is, puberty blockers and hormone replacement therapy is used for a fraction of those who are trans and non-binary youth. Most kids, their parents just say, okay, we'll socially transition, let them cut their hair the way they want, use the name they want to use, wear the clothes they want to wear, and that's where most of this stops. For those rare instances where it doesn't stop there, I just believe in letting people make those decisions and not the state.
I want to end with something that you and I agree on perfectly, but other people disagree sometimes. Tomorrow, I'm debating someone on whether or not a business could mandate that someone be vaccinated to work or frequent their establishment. I know it's kind of an annoying conversation, really, or whatever, but I think it's so important to talk about the property rights aspect of this. So if you could give me a pointer on what I should say in my debate that I'm doing tomorrow, because I'm going to be taking the same position that you take on this.
Yeah, ultimately, we have to allow businesses to make stupid decisions, and if enforcing a vaccine mandate on your employees causes you to lose good workers to another firm that's not requiring that, that is the loss of a business, and businesses have the right to make good or bad decisions. And so ultimately, for me, it is about property rights. If I owned a business, I wouldn't be mandating this for my employees, and guess what? I would be attracting the best and the brightest who don't have to feel about whether they have to get a vaccine or not. If another business wants to do something else, they lose good workers because of that. That's their loss. Their resources, if they fail, will then be reallocated in the marketplace to other firms that will do a better job. But ultimately, we have to err on the side of property rights because we have for generations, even before COVID was a thing. For years, we had no shirt, no shoes, no service. It is perfectly in line with property rights to say something like no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. Now, if they lose customers and they lose money on that, that is their fault. This is how a free market works. Again, if I owned a gas station, I wouldn't be requiring that on people. I would let people and trade and buy and all that stuff. But ultimately, we have to keep it in the realm of property rights because if we don't, again, we're giving the government the inch that they can use to take a mile. If we say, well, we can't enforce ourselves or enforce our property rights for vaccines or for masks, well, then it becomes government saying, well, you can't enforce who can come on your property, you can't enforce who you can and can't sell to. they will take that inch and they will make a mile out of it.
Now, Tim Pool says that makes you pro-vax mandate. That stance right there.
I mean, I would fully disagree with that, saying that, mandates are something that's mandated by government behavior.
Yeah.
And I oppose any government pressure or any government mandate on your healthcare decisions, no matter what it is. We've just described 2 healthcare scenarios, in which case I want the state completely out of it. And ultimately, that's where we have to fall in line. We cannot say, well, we support property rights, but. Because when we put that but in there, we are allowing people to just wedge themselves in there and take away our property rights. And ultimately, if you're not hurting anybody, your body's your body, your life's your life, your business is your business, and your property is your property. It ain't mine, and it ain't the government's.
All right, Chase, your 30-second elevator pitch for why people should vote for you.
Well, my elevator pitch is that I am fighting for principles that are actually going to fundamentally change this country. You will be more prosperous, more free, and more able to make your own decisions about your life if you embrace the Libertarian Party and philosophy. And if you vote for me this November, win, lose, or draw, you're investing in the Libertarian Party that can build ballot access, major party status, and help local Libertarians get elected in your community, in your neighborhood. And that's something worth investing in. Don't invest in an RFK that's a one and done.
All right, Chase, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.